So in today's video, I'm going to show you the 5 worst mistakes golfers make with driver. So I think if you're watching this video, you'll probably agree with me that the driver, when it's going well, is maybe the favourite club. Long tee shots in play really makes golf enjoyable. But when it's off, it's an absolute card wrecker. So 5 big mistakes golfers make. Mistake number 1 is tee height. So too often golfers are teeing the ball lower and lower and lower. And I understand why. A lot of golfers hit shots off the top of the club, the ball pops in the air, leaves horrible marks. So the theory is if you tee the ball down, it's much easier to get the middle of the club face on the golf ball. But what you've got to remember is when you tee it down, potentially you're going to use lower on the face where there's less loft. And driver's already a club that hasn't got a lot of loft. So the shot I tend to see with golfers, so we can see that shot curving out to the right. Even though a fairly centered strike, we can see the club face 12.1 degrees open, and it's not very long for nearly 100 mile an hour swing speed, and it's definitely not very accurate. So like I said, I can completely understand why golfers tee it down. You tend to see them kind of even taking a divot with the driver. The low point's ahead of the golf ball, and that's where they're de-lofting the club and then popping it off the top. So one of the ways they're going to get that loft back is as they swing into impact, they're going to leave that club face open and pointing to the right. But like we just saw with that last shot, that is an absolute killer. So the first thing I would say is tee the ball up. Really tee the ball nice and high. Don't even concentrate on touching the floor. You want to feel that you just pick the ball off the tee. And if you can get that set up there, pick the ball off the tee, well, the ball's already in the air, so you don't need to help it up. We can see there, even though a little bit of left to right shape, I'm down the fairway, the club face is much more neutral, and at 260 in the middle of the fairway, we get rid of mistake number 1, and we're on the path to hitting better drives. So mistake number 2 that I see with driver is I think golfers get the ball too near the centre of the stance and get the shoulders too level. And the reason for that is they get the hands on the club and the shoulders are level. They go down to the golf ball, have the ball a little bit too central, but once those shoulders are level, we can start seeing that they're pointing off to the left. And all that's going to encourage is more out to in path. And then depending on what you do with the club face, usually the club face is open, like we saw in the first mistake. We're off to the right and it's dead. So a great way is we want the ball to be a little further forward in the stance. And I think if you put your left hand or your top hand on the club first, get that ball more towards left heel, left armpit, and then from the side, bring that right hand in, and that'll create that little bit of spine tilt, trail shoulder, lower than lead shoulder, and once you get into that position, we can start seeing some very different tee shots. And again, another one down the fairway, club head speed exactly the same, path and face with good control, and now 273. But the most important thing there is once I've set up correctly, it gives me a much better chance of making a better swing without even trying to swing differently. So mistake number 3 is trying to hit the golf ball too hard. Now, how many of you golfers out there, and comment below and be honest, stand there with your practice swing and it feels great. It feels rhythmical, it feels quick. And then you stand up to the golf ball, feel like you've tried to absolutely murder it. Club speed doesn't really change. Strike, club delivery are very, very poor, and it's a completely different shot. Now, I've spoken in previous videos about this very issue, that because golfers are so focused on the golf ball, they don't focus on just swinging the golf club. So I always think a great way of doing it is say, by all means, look at the golf ball, but you need to be thinking about your swing. So in day-to-day life, do you ever look at one thing and think of something else? I'll bet you do, because I know I'm very good at that. So if I said to you, all I want you to do is once you've got yourself set properly, I want you to really focus on finishing your swing as well as you can. So you're going to set up to the golf ball, just focus on finishing. And we can see, even though that one's just drifting down the right, going to be in the right semi-rough. My speed didn't drop off at all. My club delivery was actually much better, and it's long and it's playable. Now, mistake number 4, I actually think comes around because golfers are very aware of what they're trying to do. If we're going to maximize tee shots, we know that we would love to have the club traveling up as it hits the golf ball to launch it high and spin low. So we know our low point needs to be behind. So what a lot of golfers do is they'll swing back nicely and then really try and stay behind the golf ball. But the problem tends to be that because they're so far behind the golf ball, again, there's no control on the delivery. The club face and the path are changing every swing, and they just see completely different shots. So what I want you to appreciate is part of what we've already worked through should give us that chance to be behind. So we've had the ball forward, we've put a little bit of spine tilt in. So then the only real feel you need from there is as you swing down, you have to get onto that left side, that lead foot, and then as that lead leg straightens, you can see it accentuates the spine tilt, keeps my low point behind, and that's how we get hitting up on the ball better, rather than keeping all the weight on that back foot and then having to manipulate the golf swing. So you set yourself up ready to go. Real focus is onto that lead leg, straighten, get that hip moving backwards, and you can stand there. And even though that didn't feel fantastic, see very low off the face, low point 5 inches behind, club traveling up 4 degrees, a lot of extra speed at nearly 106 and 280 in the fairway with a miss hit. Right, so the 5th and final mistake that I see golfers make is even with all these changes at setup, they still try and swing the driver in the same fashion that they swing an iron. But the problem is, with an iron, the ball's on the floor or teed very low. With driver, the ball's up in the air. And we know that when the ball's on the floor, we want the low point ahead of the golf ball, so the club's traveling down. With driver, as we've seen, we'd like the low point behind, so it's traveling up. Now, the little challenge there is when the low point's ahead of the golf ball, we can see the club's moving more from the inside to the ball. And when the club's moving up, it's moving more out to in. So a lot of golfers are very good with irons because they're able to control that delivery. But once they start hitting up with their iron swing, we start seeing lots of that left to right shape. We can see the club path there, 11 degrees out to in. Then my club face 12 open, and that is an absolute game over drive. So because we know the club's moving up and more out to in, actually with driver, you want to feel that in the downswing, the club's traveling more to the right and from the inside. So by the time it's traveling up, it should be much more neutral. Now you can either do that by building that a little bit into your stance or actually consciously doing that in your golf swing. So I'd probably do it a little bit in my stance and have that as my swing thought. Everything's set. There's a ripper, pretty much out the middle, 7 inches behind, 5 degrees up, just under 104 mile an hour club speed. We can see my path there, less than half a degree out to in, 253 carry and 278 total. So guys, hopefully you're not one of those golfers that makes all 5 mistakes, but if you make one of those 5, improve it. Maybe work through all 5 just to make sure nothing's creeping in. But get those right, stop making mistakes with driver, and like I said, when this is going well, maybe the most exciting club in the bag.